Hi, everyone. This is Karie Millspaugh. And today in my hot seat, I have someone pretty special. In fact, I've been picking his brain for a while, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. I have Kyle Ferroly. He is the founder and president at the Center for Mind Brain Balance. It's located in Wisconsin, for those that want to know. And he's currently publishing a book called Check Your Blind Spot. And what he does is so fascinating that I feel very privileged to literally pick his brain, which is what we're doing today. That's what he does for a living in some ways, which is kind of ironic. So, how are you today, Kyle?
I'm wonderful, and my brain is wonderful as well.
Good, 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 good. You're going to need it. So I'm going to keep you hopping today with some questions. So let's just dive right in. First and foremost, this book that you're referring to, Check Your Blind Spot. What exactly does that mean? I know a lot of us probably are starting to think immediately about driving. What kind of book is this exactly? I mean, what is it that you're trying to portray with the title by itself?
Well, I'm getting back at my driver's ed teacher for not passing. No, I'm kidding. I passed the first time with all points. Check Your Blind Spot is kind of a unique title in that there are things that happen in our brain, more so in our mind. And that's something that I really like to differentiate between, and that our mind is an extension of our brain. So we can have things in our mind right now, or we can have blind spots that are going to trigger our mind, to trigger our brain, to trigger our body, to go into what's called the fight or flight response. Now, in the old days, it was being chased by a bear, having a weapon to your head, or a serious traumatic event to provoke or evoke this stress response happening. But in our day, anything as simple as posting a picture of your dinner on Facebook and somebody not liking it, to being cut off in traffic, to binge watching on Netflix and the internet going out, to getting in a fight with somebody, physical or verbal. These are all stressors that aren't going to probably harm us or kill us, but they're very inconvenient, and we take on this perception that they are a threat. So I was sitting trying to come up with a method to help people before they come into our center. And we have a program called the Navigate program where we teach people what's going on in their mind, brain, and body. And we help them navigate through those things to be more efficient, more productive, happier, healthier. And what I've come up with in the last 20 years of studying the mind and the brain is that there are these blind spots. And one of them is our environment. Things can happen in our environment that can trigger us to be stressed. There are things that can happen in our mind that we are hanging on to that could trigger us. There are blind spots in our brain that we'll talk about where the brain is running too fast or too slow. There's blind spots in our nervous system. Every time we're stressed for a long period of time, we build up this charge, if you will. There's blind spots in healthcare, in a sense that traditional medicine isn't looking at the brain before they just hand you a pill. In counseling and talk therapy, they actually evoke the stress by having you re-eat breakfast, if you will, one of my mentors says. And you're going through these events and you're triggering the fight or flight, which we'll get to why that's so bad. There's also blind spots in self-help and personal growth because they're assuming you can just dig right in and make it happen. And last but not least, I call it the big picture blind spot. And that is where we have to find out what makes us tick. What is our purpose? Why we're here? Are we giving back? Are we helping? A lot of us like to feel like we're part of something, or we're moving or making the world a better place. So those 7 areas are going to house about 30 to 40 different topics that we go through in breakout groups or in keynotes or in private one-on-one work that we do at our center. And what it comes back to is stress isn't the problem. Stress is a warning sign that there's something wrong. And what we're going after is what happens with stress. Most of us know our muscles tense up, we have hormones running through, our respiration rate, our heart rate, all these things change. But this is the one thing I want you to take away, is that when you go into this stress response that we all know we have and we blow off because stress is just part of the day, it actually limits the connectivity in your brain. So I'm kind of nerdy and I say my brain's working well today, or my brain isn't working well today. And that's just a way of saying I'm not where I need to be. And I'm going through a threat or a fear or a worry or a concern like we all do. And what happens is the front of your brain, this is the spoiler alert, you don't even have to read the book now, right? The front of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, loses the connectivity and kind of shuts down when you don't feel in control, because you don't need to know how to be empathetic. You don't need to know how to have, problem-solving ability or logic or reasoning. You don't need to know how to control your impulses. You need to survive. So when we take out that big bear chasing us and we put in something that's kind of trivial and not that important, we're still going into this response. So check your blind spots, I thought, was such an interesting way of explaining this, because when you look over your shoulder in the US, your left shoulder, you check your blind spot when you're driving. Sometimes we even do it when we're being driven around because we don't trust the driver.
Mhm.
And in Europe, they have the wheel on the other side and you look over your right shoulder. But what's there right now may not be. And what's not there, something could arise. And that's why I think it's so important to understand that we have these 7 areas with 30 to 40 different topics some of us struggle with that trigger our mind, brain, and body to not be healthy.
Unbelievable. Now, the one thing I
I
want to
know
point
I threw a lot at you, Karie,
no,
but
it's awesome.
it's hard to sum this up.
No, it is. It's perfect. Knowing that there's like 7 key areas that could be blind spots is huge. Now, the thing I want to point out more than anything to anyone listening is that what Kyle does isn't just a mindset piece. It's not just your thoughts. It's so much more than that. He takes what he works with his clients and patients. I don't know if that's even the right word, but what he does with them is so much more different than your average mindset coach or something along those lines. Explain what you do. You actually do what is called a brain map or like a brain analysis. That's the step further that most aren't doing. So explain just give us kind of a picture in our head of what exactly that is.
Sure. And I would like to make sure we circle back to the body assessment and the brain assessment and the mind assessment. The brain assessment is a brain map. And there are so many different kinds of brain maps. Some people, if you Google it, are saying a brain map is when you mind map and you lay it out on paper and your brain did it. Some people are putting sensors on your head at 1 or 2 spots and moving them all over the head and then adding them up all together. A true brain map is an EEG, especially if it's done at the medical level, which is a higher, wider range of frequencies. And it looks at 19 locations across your scalp of the cortex. There's the inner brain, there's the outer brain. The outermost layer is called the cortex, and that's the one that we use for a lot of our type of processing. The inner brain is more the, instinctual, controlling, heart rate, things like that. So the outermost level, at the medical level, you can record these 19 channels. You can actually record, 256 if you wanted to in a research lab. But the normal doctor is going to record 19 of them. If you have a sleep study done, it's the same kind of EEG, but it's a shortened time. And we take a baseline. So you come in our office, we ask you to, not do certain things like smoke or drink or party the night before, no benders or anything like that. If you're a student, don't stay up all night studying, we don't want you sleep deprived. We just want to get a snapshot of what your brain is doing. And we can see what areas are working too fast or not fast enough. We can also look at what's happening in your brain with the connectivity. Are certain areas or regions or networks of your brain talking properly to one another, or are they not working, or are they working too much? So it can be a matter of volume, like amplitude in the brain, where things are just moving too much and too intently, or it could be a connectivity issue. And those are only being seen on a true 19-channel EEG. These mini maps and mini cues and mini everything else, they're better than nothing, of course, but you can't see how everything's connecting at the same time if you record it in different times. So it would be like, trying to record a film on Netflix and re-recording a 20th of the screen at a time and then trying to put it all back together and watch it. It'd be a little bit difficult in my mind. So the brain map is one of the most important parts that we do. In addition, we look at the body in the physiology, because one's nervous system is connected to the brain, and the nervous system that we look at ties into the whole fight or flight. So it's not enough anymore just to do a brain map. you really need to know how stressed you are behind the scenes. And when stress builds and accumulates over time, little by little by little, we've only had 2 people in 11 years, and we work with people across the country that were healthy, that didn't have an overactive brain or an underactive brain or connectivity issues or stress in their body. And of course, I'm not one of them. I have to be honest. I'm like everybody else that has things to work on. And when you look at the mind and the brain, and then you bring in the cognitive or emotional or psychological or mental component, you can see what the brain and the body look like when we're relaxed and when we're stressed. And most important, how long does it take you to come back to baseline after a stressor? When I started this field, someone cut me off in the morning, I'd be ticked off half the morning. Well, that shows on an assessment. Now that I've regulated some more of my brain, I have my choice words in my head for people that are more important than me that cut me off, and I move on because I've been able to regulate some of those things and not be as anxious and stressed as I used to be. So I look at it as why I'm so passionate about this and why I love to spend time educating others is that I'm not coming to you with anything perfect except the press on the shirt, which you can't see because we're not doing video today. But that's it. I mean, it's a nice icebreaker joke to people because we all can move forward at the best rate we can, but we all have these blind spots that are triggering our mind, our brain, and our body. And I'm happy that Karie's asking me today about the brain, but it's really only one of the 3 pieces of the puzzle.
Absolutely. And I do love that you described that. I didn't know we had an inner brain and outer brain. I'm taking notes over here. Like, wow, it's that. So that's how that works. Very interesting. So it's kind of cool that you have equipment, things of that nature. You've been, educated obviously on what you're looking at. I'm sure most of us wouldn't know what we were looking at if we saw our own brains on a monitor somewhere, but you have the ability to do that. That's amazing. I think step 1 really is the awareness, and that's what this book is all about, and what you do for a living and speaking and so on is creating that ripple effect of awareness first. Because if we don't know to even check the blind spot in the first place, we could easily get run off the road, literally, of life. So that's basically what it's about. So tell us about how the other parts all blend together and kind of give us the whole picture of the.
Sure. Well, and I'm so passionate about the body one that I had to sneak it into the last question. So I did go into a little bit of it already. But basically, let's just start at the beginning. When you perceive something in the world, if it's okay, you feel all right. If it's not okay, you feel a threat or a worry. So you can have something that happened to you a long time ago bring up this sense of worry or fear. It sends a signal to your brain, to your body, and you go into this fight or flight response. We look at the mind and what is triggering the brain and the body to go into that mode. We look at the brain to see what's the wake or the paper trail, if you will, of what the mind's already done. If you're constantly overcharging yourself and worrying about things, your brain's going to build neural connections a certain way that are going to be different than if you are relaxed and calm. And with the body's nervous system, you're going to fall off your chair when you hear how simple this stuff is. We have equipment that costs what cars do in the office, but there are sensors you can plug into your iPhone once you know what you're doing that measure your skin temperature or the sweat on your skin or even your heart rate, and you can learn to self-regulate yourself. So our center does have doctors on staff, neurotherapists on staff, clinicians, technicians. So we do have a variety of patients and clients and individuals that don't want to be called anything, like the peak performers or the athletes, because they don't have anything wrong. They're just coming in for that extra added edge. But what it comes down to is you got to look at the mind and the brain and how they balance each other out and what they do to the body. So it's really kind of one assessment that we work on. And there isn't anybody else out there that is really tackling both angles. There are some excellent people in psychology. There are some excellent people in neurology and neuroscience. There are some good people doing psychophysiology, but there aren't enough people that are trying to do it all. And you do get spread a little thin when you try and do it all, which is why our center's hired some of the top people we can find for some of the best psychologists, some of the best brain analysis people, some of the best physiologists. And I think that what we're offering is a training instead of a treatment. in a sense that when you go to the doctor and they give you a pill, it's a treatment. You need that. You can't really live without it sometimes. Sometimes you can. But when you learn a skill in how to calm down your nervous system, how to breathe different, how to teach your brain to work different through something we'll talk about later, you're in control. And what's ironic is we all want control, but yet we're looking for it in the external world instead of the internal world. So we don't want to always have to depend on a pill if there's something else out there that's natural that could do it. Now, I'm not saying to go out and eat some tree leaves to try and stop a heart attack. I mean, obviously there are medical types of interventions. But I guess what I'm getting at is any time that it's mind or brain related, doctors look at your symptoms only. Ooh, we just talked about blind spots, traditional medicine.
Yep.
The brain is the only organ we don't look at before we treat. And that's just the way the medical model is. I've been trying my best for 11 years to change that. I haven't been able to change it yet. So there's my irony here. I'm trying to control the world again and change the world. So that's why I like these type of interviews and places to share information on. And that, you know, if you go to your doctor and tell them, I'm going to get a brain map to know what's going on and what type of ADD I have. By the way, did you know, Karie, there's 7 patterns of ADD and the meds only work for a few?
Oh, goodness. That's a whole nother conversation for sure.
It sure is. So, you know, there's things like that when you go into a doctor and they look at your symptoms, the problem is symptoms can overlap. And when they overlap, there's a lot of misdiagnosis. The most common thing that people come to my office for, is it ADD or is it anxiety? In both cases, if you're going too fast or too slow, you can't focus. You might be irritable. You might be impulsive because your nervous system is not running right. And remember what we talked about 5 hours ago, or at least I was talking about. You haven't been able to do too much talking yet. The idea that the brain is not running properly when you're in fight or flight. So if the prefrontal area of your brain controls impulse, it controls decision-making, analysis, reasoning, emotional control, things like that, how effective are we going to be in our daily life? Doesn't matter if you're a kid or you're an elderly person. Your brain's not running right. We aren't going to be functioning and being productive or being happy or healthy until we get that under control. And most of us are going to the doctor saying, where's the pill? Why isn't it fixing it? And there's this random place in Lake Country in Wisconsin, in the Midwest, with Kyle Ferroly sharing this brand new idea. It's going to take a while to get out there, but there is hope when you look in the right places. And that's where I think we need to start, is a combination of your mind, your brain, and your body's nervous system.
I love this. Boy, the ADHD thing just hit a nerve at home for sure. There's too many kids that are being diagnosed.
Can you imagine?
Go ahead.
Can you imagine having your son or daughter go to a doctor and have them have the pattern that's overactivated, and the doctors say, well, it looks like ADD, and they accidentally give you a stimulant? That's like putting gas on a bonfire, and it doesn't have to happen anymore. It's not the doctor's fault. They weren't trained with EEG in their field. They don't see it as a necessary component. But that's where I really have a lot of passion and don't ever want to stop trying to change the world, because it's not that there's other ways to do it. It's not like, you sell tires and your neighbor sells tires. Which tire's better? It's the same tire. We're talking about an option that could help people not have as much hurt or pain or negative side effects. I'm just frustrated that the world hasn't come around more. Like they have chiropractics. Our field's kind of like where chiropractics were 20, 30 years ago. Now you see one on every corner. So it's my goal to, keep one foot in my practice and put one foot out into the world and try and share this message that we can work with our concerns and our struggles if we just look in the right places.
I love that. That's your mission, and you get to have that. You never know. We might be listening to this 30 years from now, and there is a center like yours on every corner. That would be pretty cool, for sure. You also kind of reminded me a little bit that we are always trying to control outside of ourselves, and how different it could be if we could just learn to control ourselves, our own thoughts, our own emotions. how much more calmer and how we can react so much better to what's going on the planet today. It's just a lot easier to, I know when I meditate or I have a good night's rest, I'm better, I'm more fresh, I can handle just about anything life throws at me that day. But obviously, we're always looking for stuff outside of us to make us feel better, make us feel calm. And that's sometimes it just isn't a possibility. So let's talk about some of the blind spots outside of us that we're consistently working on. And something else you said, I wrote this down. I've heard of people with an overactive brain. I get that. I know quite a few people like that, but I didn't know there was such a thing as an underactive brain. Could you just kind of tell me a little bit of what that looks like? What is an underactive brain?
Well, it's actually really sad because some people, the ADD pattern is, some people feel it could be environmental, some people feel it could be genetic, some people feel you can turn on and off your genes. Of course, that's a whole other conversation. But when you look at the traditional ADD pattern, it's actually a slowed pattern, meaning the dominant brain waves are slower than the processing. So I know we're going into a lot more depth than we wanted to, but there are basic categories of brain waves. There's delta waves, which are more associated with sleep and being really, really, really out of it, but not quite sleeping. Then there's theta waves. Those are where we're creative and we're daydreaming, but we're not, focusing outside. We're internally focusing. So musicians and artists have a lot of the theta waves. And then you get into the alpha waves, which are the in the moment waves, which are good because people that are stuck in the past or worried about the future are usually anxious. And somebody that's in the moment, you're going to be more regulated and grounded and right here, right now. And then there's beta waves, and there's low beta, there's good beta, and there's high beta. And what happens with the typical ADD pattern is the front of the brain is not running with the good beta waves. It's running with the in your own thought, creative, focused, daydreaming waves. And that's why when you ask somebody that has ADD, the harder you try, the worse it gets, because now you're taxing your brain to try and do something it doesn't want to do. Also, I have a very good friend in Florida who is struggling with Lyme disease, and it is a real thing, even though doctors don't want to say it is. There are Lyme clinics that are treating people all over. One of my mentors, his wife, we found out had Lyme. So after all the stuff that he taught me and got me going with, I was able to come into his family and get him connected to the right people, and now she's better, and she was almost bedridden to that point. So there's toxicity issues as well. And let's not forget concussions. I was just on the phone with a potential patient for our center, and she said she was frustrated that, she went to the doctor and said, well, I heard that EEG and neurofeedback can help with concussions. And the doc's like, I don't believe that. Well, there are some systems out there that aren't the best. I'm not going to lie. Just like every field has good and bad coaches and good and bad doctors and good and bad drivers or whatever. And the problem is that that's where traditional medicine still is saying that, well, no, there aren't, just go home and rest. Well, what we've seen is that when you bang your head so many times, you can really hurt yourself. And I had a very dear friend of mine who is younger, and I worked with him a long time ago, and we kind of kept up after we worked together like almost a decade ago. And I'd gotten a call from his mom that he was going through some really horrible things. And coincidentally, he hit his head on the concrete and track. And we were able to map him again. And I worked with a couple doctors long distance out in LA where they lived. And turns out he now has epilepsy, and he didn't have it before. So that's a blind spot right there, in that you might have something happen to you that you didn't really think much about. But he had so many concussions before that he kind of moved past, he thought, that this last one just did him in. And I'm thankful to say he's in college right now and he's doing well, but we're still watching him. And because he is kind of like a nephew to me or a little brother to me, I don't know quite the dynamic. He's just a very special person to me. And it's just so sad to see that, we can think everything's better and think everything is fixed, and it still can creep up on you. I've had multiple car accidents and skiing accidents, and I've fallen down the stairs a few times, with feet and no shoes on shiny carpet, I guess you could say. And I know that every time I do that, it's like a little worse each time. And thankfully, I have all these tools at my mad science lab to regulate myself. But I think about all the people that don't know about us yet and have the same random things happen to themselves, and they're not doing anything about it. And it's just so hard when people come to me in the 11th hour and say, can you help? And I thought, what if I could have gotten to you a year ago or 2 years ago? Like this potential patient before, he had multiple concussions 2 years ago. And now the mom's finally ready to maybe bring him to our center. And I'm thinking, oh man, I really have to work on getting out there and sharing this message with the masses so they at least know about it. You don't have to fly to the Midwest and come check out the cheese and the cows we have here, right? You can go anywhere, but let's make sure it's a qualified, reputable place that's doing the tests the right way. Again, you don't want some mini map, you want a full Q. You don't want, a stress assessment, you want a full psychophysiological assessment. And these are the questions that we are always answering on the telephone and we don't charge for, because it's more about getting people pointed in the right direction and giving them that education. So again, I have to thank you for having me on today and letting me share all this, because to me, it's way more than a job. It's a passion, and it's a quest to try and help more people not suffer.
That description was super clear. I've heard of the delta, the theta, I've heard of alpha, beta, I've heard all of it, but the way you described it just made so much more sense. And I didn't even think about epilepsy and all these things. Yeah, you're shedding light on lots of things. And they all seem to point to my family, so it's kind of interesting. Great awareness. I love the stories, because then it kind of helps us see, who do I know that's got this going on? Or who do I know that's also had this happen and they're looking in the wrong direction for solutions? And, something that your clinic does could be the solution. I love it. I love it. So let's talk about some other blind spots that might be out there. We recently come off a very high profile media week with a lot of political stuff going on. And of course, the midterms are coming up to vote. So you can't expect anything less than that. And I don't want to talk about politics, but in general, how does the media play into being a blind spot? How is it the external stuff that's causing us to have challenges that wouldn't normally be there? How was that a blind spot for us?
Well, a while back, I had worked with a mentor that used to be a newscaster. And she told me that, just kind of the science and the theory behind all of the media. And it's usually, murders and house fires and car accidents. And it's unfortunate that people suffering seem to capture our attention just as much as people winning the lottery or somebody opening an ice cream shop next door. Yeah. And what happens with the media, in two ways. There's the news telling you what's wrong. Maybe sometimes there's a little kid that comes on missing teeth and it's his birthday in the morning. That's always nice, a nice break from the problems. But anytime that there's a problem, like you had just said when I was outlining a few cases, when people have a problem or they sense someone has a problem or they know somebody that's having a problem, it evokes that stress response just a little bit. It may not turn you into a full 5-alarm fire where you're, panting and hyperventilating and thinking there's a bear behind you. But remember, people who have been in combat or war, they could hear a firecracker go off and they feel it's a gunshot. Mm-hmm. They could hear a certain rustle in a tree and it might be something. We have some family members that we used to go boating with, and he still in his 70s sleeps with a weapon under his pillow. That's just what's happened. And that's not my place to say, hey, don't do that, come in and breathe different. But there are people that are carrying some of these things through, and it's really sad because there might be a way to calm some of that down. So that's the one end of the media. The other end of the media, and I don't know if it's really media or if I should call it advertising or marketing or keeping up with the Joneses or whatnot, but how many times have you watched the commercial at Winter and said, well, darn it, I'm not getting my spouse or partner a new Lexus with a red bow on it. Well, I didn't just buy that new perfume, though. How come I don't have a yacht like that they're sitting on? There's so many things in the ads and that marketing, or someone at work that has a brand new suit on that you want to have, or shoes or a purse or whatever. It's unfortunately becoming more the have and have nots in some ways, I think, depending on where you live and who you hang around with. And feeling like you're on top isn't really a good thing because there's always higher to go and there's always someone above you. But feeling on the bottom is really a bummer because there are people around you that have more and you're like, well, why can't I have that? Well, what about this? What about that? And I think that a lot of that plays into, oh, let's work a little harder so we can have more money to have more stuff. And just a really, weird disclosure, we can cut this out if we don't like it. But I remember when I turned 30 and I was driving the car I wanted and had the watch I wanted and had the custom clothes and everything else in the country club and just bought a new house. And I thought I was on top of the world. And I remember I can still see it and can still get the full body chill. Where I was driving on this road from my practice to my house, which was only 2 minutes away. It was awesome. Everything was just great. And I wasn't happy still. I still wanted more. I wanted more clients. I wanted a second office. I wanted to, pay off my loans quicker, whatever it is that I thought I needed to do. And it wasn't until I kind of almost lost a lot, to be honest, that I realized it's not in keeping up with the Joneses. And now I live a totally different life and I don't push beyond the limits. The only thing I push are trying to get people to learn all the stuff that we do. I still push in that area. But it taught me that was a huge blind spot that I had, and that I was always trying to have a little bit more and always trying to push it to where I was then living an unhealthy life to achieve all that. And now I've backed off and I have way more than I had when I was 30, but not nearly what I'd like to have. So I'm not going to sit here and be holier than thou out and all the rest of it. I still struggle with the same things. But I think the reason I'm so passionate about this book coming out is that I saw it and now I know it's there. And I'm constantly checking my left shoulder of, am I getting a little too caught up at the country club? Am I getting a little too caught up in having too many suits or shoes or whatever? Am I worried about how many news channels I can get on with my new book? I mean, it's coming back to maybe I should spend more time with what really matters. And coincidentally, we're going to my wife's grandma's funeral this afternoon. And the last week has really helped me find more of my blind spots and that what's really important at the end. And most of it's giving back, family, friends, making a difference in the world. And that media blind spot really pulled me away from a lot of that. And as you can tell, if you get between the lines on some of the stuff and you're that type of analytical thinker, these blind spots are all woven together. And I can't take credit for that. It just happened when I put them together. Think about how you feel in your mind when you don't have what your neighbor has. Well, that triggers your brain and your body. Think about when you go to the doctor and they don't have an answer for you. Now you don't feel like you're in control, making your situation better. And then you see the media. And then you read some self-help book that's going to promise you 9 steps to freedom or mindset of money or whatever it is. And you realize I can't get out of my own way. So I think the biggest blind spot is, are we living in safe mode or are we living in fear mode? Are we going towards success? Are we going towards failure? Are we going towards growth? And I think the whole book is going to kind of take us in that direction. And one of my keynotes is actually going to be called From Stress to Success, because we want to help individuals, whether they're running a house, a company, a boardroom, a meeting, a shop, yourself, a family, in that we got to get out of that stress mode that we don't really want to say we're in because we just brush it under the rug. We all have stress. Who cares, right? But we want to get towards that other mode. And you can't build and move things in the right direction. Your mind, your brain, and your body are locked in that stress mode. So let's not say we're going to get rid of stress. Let's see stress as what it is. It's a warning that something's not right. But let's try and regulate our nervous system, our mind, and our brain by looking at some of these blind spots and saying, which ones do I have and which ones do I need to really work on as a priority to stop turning on that 5-alarm fire bell.
I can see the circle of chaos. the media, or like you said, or anything that triggers us to, I have to have more to be more. Now I'm going to buy a book to tell me how to make more money. Then I'm going to back into, I still don't have it, so I'm less than, and the lack theory and all that other stuff. It turns into a big circle of garbage. You're on this hamster wheel of life, constantly comparing. And that's not the blind spots that Kyle's talking about. We're not asking you to look left or right to what other people are doing. I'm always about staying in your own lane. Life's not a contest. It's all about you and just being your best self. But unfortunately, we compare. And it's hard not to. You're right. Subconsciously, we're flipping through the TV. It's Christmas time. Look at all those wonderful presents everybody else is getting. Or it's Valentine's Day and all the guilt falls on the man's shoulders of all things. And to be the best, husband or spouse or partner. It's so true. You shed a lot of light around the media, the good and bad. I immediately thought of news is so negative. It puts you into fear mode and makes you afraid to get in your car to go to work because you just saw the 8-car pile up on the freeway. It's just, which way do you want to live? You know, do you want to be in a peaceful mode, or do you want to freak out every day? You know, I know many people that's how they start their day. They watch the news, and there is about 2% positive, 98% negative. So it's not the best start to your day. Luckily for us, it's just not on in our home. So I just kind of keep myself tuned out to that. So I love everything you've talked about, but I want to go a little deeper because there's something you said right at the beginning of the call that I thought was hilarious enough to write it down. So many people out there, and there's a lot of therapists out there, so we don't want to, say this is a negative career choice, and it is necessary in some areas. But counseling, I know some people that are literally have a lifelong therapist. That's permanent part of their day or life. And is that too much? You mentioned re-eat your breakfast, I think is what you said, and I almost laughed out loud. Talk to me a little bit about the counseling and the talk therapy type of situations, because I know lots of therapists, and I know a lot of people that have gone since they were little, for years and years, and I don't see any change in their life. So what's going on there exactly? It's good, bad, or the ugly?
This is kind of interesting how we come back to this. One of my mentors, Jeff Proctor, used to own multiple clinics, mental health homes, etc. And he's the one who has said, don't re-eat your breakfast. So we're going to have to forward this to him so he can get a chuckle out of his Jeffism. And I am a master's level therapist by trade. That's actually what I started at. I was one of those kids that asked a lot of why questions. It led me to self-help and growth. It led me to philosophy. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, but I still wanted to do some other things. So I ended up getting a master's in psychotherapy and counseling. So I'm not going to bash myself. And my mentor, Dr. Ann Weston, who's also part of our clinic at the Center for Mind-Brain Balance, she's been molding me and guiding me for 11, 12 years now. And I believe in what she's doing, and I believe in what Jeff did and what I did. But what kind of made me pull away from the field was when I had a client take his life. And he was 15 years old. It was my first year of practice. He was being abused by his father in the worst way you could ever imagine. And the day that he was supposed to put his father away in court, he chose not to. And the next day, I got a call that he took his life. And I put everything since I was a little trooper into wanting to help people, learn. I think I'm just an empathetic person for a lot of things. I cried at funerals. I don't even know the person who passed. So today ought to be really fun when I go to my wife's grandma's, who was an amazing lady. Nonetheless, it was this thing where I really thought I could just help everybody by talking to them. Because as a kid, I'd always talk to adults, and they'd say, oh, you're such a nice listener. Oh, you're such a nice guy, Kyle. So that, oh, good, I'll just get into helping people. This will be awesome. And what happened was it didn't work out so well. And I've had 4 suicides now on my watch in practice in the last 11 years. And actually a little bit more than 11. I've been doing neuroscience work for 11 years, but probably almost 15 years. So the problem is that when you read breakfast, as Jeff says, and you go through that traumatic event, whether it's a bad relationship, being hurt, being in a war, whatever it is, it's a traumatic event that happened. You relive that event in your mind, and your mind triggers your brain to go into fear. So now you're sitting in this comfy office, at least all of ours are, nice couches and plants and pictures and waterfalls like you may hear in the background here, and you're in fear mode. You're locking up the prefrontal cortex where you make good decisions and your analysis and your reason and your judgment and your empathy. Now, granted, you don't need to have empathy for your doctor or therapist. They need to have it for you. But you do need to be connected. So when's the last time you got really frustrated about something and had a really good outcome or had a really good idea? Yeah, what you brought up before, Karie, is right. We do need to look forward and not check our blind spot so much, because then we get into a wreck when we're looking at everybody else around us. And the blind spot of self-help and personal growth and psychology and even psychiatry, because they're not looking at the brain either, is that we put ourselves into this mode and we can only take away a minimal amount of that amazing session. Now, I believe Dr. Ann Weston is not only, a lifesaver in my world, she's helped me personally and professionally. I never laid on my couch and told her, every single piece of my life. But when it comes to being a better practitioner, some of those personal things do come up. And I remember it took a couple years to get through a few bumps that I had. And I didn't have anything major happen in my life that's been bad. I've really been blessed with an amazing life and parents that are in love and still married. And I have a brother who does have special needs, but he's my biggest teacher. And I don't, feel it's a bad thing. I think it's a beautiful blessing. So I've always felt like, well, what am I to complain about? Like, why am I coming in here and sitting in this chair and we talk every Tuesday night for a couple hours about the same junk over and over? And I realized it's because I was so anxious and so stressed of, well, my practice has to take off and I've got to build this up because I want to get this and buy this and do this. See how we come back to that media blind spot? Mm-hmm. I'm very transparent, whether it's on a call or whether you're in my office. I have to be real because I want you to be real on the other end. And I kicked myself for all those years where I just sat there and went through the same stuff in my head that was making me frustrated and stressed. And then I was expecting someone else to fix it. And now I sit back when we have meetings or staffing, or once in a while I try to take Dr. Weston out for lunch when she'll let me. And I just laugh and I'm like, God, was I lost? What the heck? And she's like, wait, we all are. I mean, she still won't say, yeah, you had a screw loose, or yeah, you didn't get it for years, like knock on wood. But it was one of those things where, therapy is a wonderful tool. But what if you could go into your therapist's office right after leaving my office and your nervous system was a little more balanced, your brain wasn't in fear mode, and then you could work on those mental components or psychological components or emotional aspects of your life, and you could plow through them so much faster than when you come in and you're just living in a world of terror. I have a lot of people that come into my office and I refer them to Dr. Weston, or if they have a psychologist of their own or a counselor, a therapist, or a life coach, anybody that's going to kind of help guide them. But when they're so far gone, if you will, I try and work with them a little bit before I pass them off, because otherwise, oh, great, I've been in therapy for a month and nothing's happening. Oh, I've been in it, like you said, all my life and nothing's happening. Some people, they're just not ready to let go of something because it's so much fear. Some people, I believe, have lived with the fear so long that if they didn't have it, they wouldn't know what to do. This is a really random story, but it might tie it all in. We believe that people that have anxiety or depression or OCD or ADD, when we help them with their brain and get it better to where they can live their life a little bit easier, they do have psychological trauma from that because they used to label themselves and use the crutches of that disability or of that label. And now when you don't have it anymore, you're not saying, hi, I'm Kyle and I'm anxious. You're saying, hi, I'm Kyle and I'm okay. Well, how do you know who that is? Because you haven't ever been that. So I believe that it's not just coming in like an assembly line and fix your brain, fix your mind, fix your body, and go live life. You have to work with that new sense of enjoyment, of happiness, of peace, of less resistance, of just having more control of your life again. And that's why I think that the world of self-help, personal growth, motivation, talk therapy, counseling, I think it's a wonderful field, but I don't believe that it's enough. I don't believe that you can just go to your doctor or talk therapist and work through it as efficiently as if you could balance out some of that stuff. Because if you're sitting there and you're being chased by a bear in your head, you're not really, hopefully, right? Mm-hmm. You're not going to be able to do Microsoft Excel. You're not going to care about your neighbor's garden. You're not going to want to call anyone and be in a good mood. You're going to want to survive. And most of the time when we dig up a past event that's happened, we're in that survival mode. When I smashed my body to pieces downhill skiing, I was not in control to even get up. I got a free ride in a sled behind a snowmobile to the hospital, right? And if I think about that right now, I can feel my muscles tensing up. I can feel even my vocal get a little bit more tense talking to you. And then I need to work on calming that down. But if I wasn't able to be hooked up to the equipment in our office to see what it looks like when I think I'm okay, but I'm really not, I wouldn't have that wow factor of, whoa, I really need to calm that down, or I'm going to get chronic tension, or I'm going to get migraines, or I'm going to get headaches, which I've had in my life. I am the expert in how to put too much on your plate and push through and try and do the best I can. And I'm not proud of it. And I work every day at it. And I have a lot of clients that share that with me. So I'm very passionate about figuring out a way to have more balance, figuring out a way to keep my health up. But some of us just have that I don't know what it is. Drive, desire to just keep doing 110% instead of just 100. And we have to be working with that. And that's why I really like to specialize with small business owners and entrepreneurs and executives and middle management and low management and anybody that is feeling like they've got to do 110% today. It's like a quest or a disease I think we have in our minds. And we can't pull back, and we can't not answer our phone at 9 p.m. We have to learn how to regulate some of those things if we're going to continue to drive off the road. Because I don't have the power or the ability. I have a magic wand, but the AAA batteries are out of it right now. And I've tried to use it a lot and say, don't work so hard. Don't try so hard. Just be okay and be healthy. Nobody does it. I don't do it. We all don't do it. We all push harder than we want to. But if we can then kind of offset some of that with keeping ourselves more regulated and have a better resilience to our stress, I believe we can kind of take on a little bit more of it. And that's maybe not the best way to go about it, but it's a very realistic way. And I've learned that from many of my executives that I work with, in that they're saying, sorry, I can't work 40 hours a week. I won't have a job. Okay, well then how can we help you working 90 hours a week be more healthy? So you see how it's maybe not the best thing, but I'm more about being real than being optimistic. I don't want to be a pessimist, and I don't want to be fully optimistic and they say, oh, you're going to be better tomorrow. But I'm all about being a realist. My father taught me that. And it's a wonderful way to just kind of go right down the middle and say, yeah, I'd like to err on the side of being more optimistic, but I'm just glad I'm not being pessimistic.
Good stuff. I'm thinking back to the talk therapy, and I'm thinking, well, maybe that's why I'm stalling with writing my own books. I have to actually relive some stuff. And some of us don't want to relive that. I would be a horrible patient for a therapist. Be like, no, I don't want to go there today. I don't want to talk about it. But it makes so much sense because you're actually reliving it over and over and over. I think of some friends of mine that just can't get past stuff. And you're spot on. It's their identity. They don't know how to be anything else. It's scary to be anything else. And I do believe we get addicted to drama and trauma and things of that nature. It's just kind of a part of our DNA at some point, where graduating from a therapist looks scary. I don't know what that person looks like. I don't know how to be that person. That's my identity. I'm the victim. So you hit so much good stuff, so much awareness on just that all by itself. Good stuff, good stuff. Well, we're going to wrap up, and I want to ask you if there's anything else you want to give our audience, any last little tidbits or nuggets or anything else besides obviously go get the book and find you all over online or even fly into the clinic if that's a possibility. Anything else you want to kind of give the audience to take away today?
Well, I don't need to tell the audience that I like to talk and I have a lot to share and I care. Obviously, they probably gathered that in this time. I founded my center on a quote by Albert Einstein, and that is, problems cannot be solved with the mindset that created them. And no matter what you're struggling with right now, when you look in the right place, there's always hope. And when you look at the root cause, there's even more hope. I don't believe we can think our way out of everything. I grew up a very, emotional and sensitive kid. Part of it might have been because of my brother's special needs, or my mom being the sweetest lady I've ever met in my life. But what I couldn't do is the best advice I ever got, which was from my father, and that was, can't you just snap out of it a little, man? Why you gotta worry so much? Why do you gotta think about that? Why just try and pull out of that? Just snap out of it. And that's the best advice I ever got, and I still can't do it. I think there are things that happen in our lives like that point us in the direction of, there's a blinking light. Why is it blinking? What do I need to do to fulfill my reason to be on this earth? And I think it is to help people figure out why we can't think our way out of it and snap out of it. So Einstein's quote, I founded the business on that, and I want to leave you with that and have that sit in the back of your head for the rest of the day, hopefully. And that is, we have to get in front of the problem and have new insight and new knowledge and new awareness if we want to figure out the old problem that we're struggling with. If it was easy enough for you to just pull your way out of it right now, you would have, and you wouldn't have it. But everything is so darn complex in our life. And if you believe in some of these blind spots that I know I have, and I have to look in all the time, you you can get a little bit more in the direction that you want to have, whether it's for your life or somebody else's life. You're trying to help yourself, you're trying to help a child. And I think that when it really comes down to it, anything that can help us be more happy, healthy, and more productive, whether it's at home or at the office or doing whatever, a sport, is going to make us feel like we're moving in that positive direction. And when we feel that, we have the illusion that we're in control, because we don't control the outside world, we only control what's inside. When you set some goals for yourself and you start achieving them and realizing them, it builds, and success leaves clues, and you follow that. So I would just ask you to, if you are struggling with something, if you can't think your way out of it, be open to the idea that it could be mind or brain related. Look up the term psychophysiology, Psychophysiology. I think I spelled that right. I'm better writing it on paper. But it's the study of how the mind, the brain, and the body interact. And it's going to bring in the field of biology, the field of neuroscience, and the field of psychology. And a lot of people are testing the water with a coach or a therapist, but they don't realize that there's this whole field that's growing. Like I said, chiropractics 20, 30 years ago, nobody knew of it. We're going to be on the map. But if you could help yourself now, why wait? Karie, I really want to thank you for taking the time to have me on. I get, a full body chill, goosebumps every time I get to go through this stuff. I know I'm where I need to be. I know I'm in my calling. And I just want to thank you again for being open enough to share this to you and also to your group and people that you know as something that can benefit all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kyle, so much. And if anyone wants to learn more about his clinic, you can go to mindbrainbalance.com. Or if you want to hire Kyle to speak at your next event or look up his publications, you can go to kyleferroly.com. So thank you, everyone. And thank you again, Kyle, for your precious time today.
Thank you.